Well, good evening, everybody. This is Dave Jones with Storm Center Communications and GeoCollaborate. It is Friday, February 28th, 2025. It is a sad day for those of us who work with our colleagues at NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. They've had a series of major layoffs, RIFs, reduction in force actions taken against them. It looks like close to 10% of the NOAA workforce is being reduced. And so I just want to touch briefly on the weather that's going to be impacting us over the next couple of days, because in the central and eastern part of the country, we do have a strong front that's going to be coming through tomorrow, and there's a lot of fire weather watches that have been posted by the National Weather Service. They have 122 forecast offices. They have been in need of additional employees, and now it's even worse. So those Weather Service office employees are working likely overtime to keep everyone around the nation safe. So I want to show you this satellite imagery, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about where this data comes from, just so you have an appreciation for all of the things that have to come together for a weather forecast and a weather outlook to be made. So I'm going to start here with the GOES satellite imagery. This is a satellite that's orbiting 22,300 miles above the Earth in a geosynchronous orbit. It means that it orbits at the same speed, the same orbital speed as the Earth rotates. And so it stays above the same spot at the same time, which is why we can show these clouds move. This satellite is more than $1 billion because it takes so much science and technology to be able to get this thing up there, orbiting and operating, so we can have our eyes in the skies 24/7, 365. These images are updated every 10 minutes. Look, we can see the sunset line. It's called the Terminator line coming down. You can also see the sharp line of clouds here. That's a strong front that's going to be passing through the mid-Atlantic states, and it's going to be causing winds of 30 to 40, perhaps even 45 miles per hour during the day Saturday. That's why a fire weather watch has been issued, and I'll show you on GeoCollaborate what that looks like. This is GeoCollaborate here, and look at all these advisories that have been issued. Each National Weather Service forecast office has an area of responsibility. It's called their county warning area, and they issue through conversations and discussions with neighboring weather forecast offices consistent products. So you and me can travel and understand what's going on. The criteria are basically the same for these kind of advisories. But look at this. This means from central and northern New Jersey tomorrow through southeastern Pennsylvania and Maryland and Virginia, there's a fire weather watch into Tennessee, North Carolina, South Carolina, and also into Georgia, because it's going to be very dry out and winds are going to approach 30 to 40 miles per hour with gusts perhaps even higher. So that means if a fire were to start, it could spread rapidly because of the dry conditions and those strong gusty winds. Now out here, this is a red flag warning in the Midwest, Kansas, Oklahoma, northern Arkansas, into Missouri and also Illinois and up into Iowa. This is a red flag warning, means that conditions are favorable. If a wildfire or some sort of fire were to develop, it could spread rapidly. So those of you that live in these areas, keep a close eye out on your NOAA weather radio or your local broadcast meteorologist and watch for those crawls across the screen. Whenever the Weather Service issues a watch or a warning or an advisory, it kicks off that crawl generator that TV stations use to keep you informed. All of this goes back to the critical nature of the National Weather Service and the products and services that they offer 24/7, 365. Look up here in the upper part of the Great Lakes. This is some winter weather that's going to be happening here, and also freezing spray advisories because it's going to be so cold and so windy that spray can slap up upon a bow of a ship. That spray will freeze instantly on that ship and make it very dangerous to operate. It also happens to accrete ice on any coastal areas where waves hit. It's going to be very, very cold up around the northern Great Lake areas, and also winter weather advisories in parts of northern New York because of snow that's expected. I'll show you that on the weather models here in just a second, but I want to go back to the satellite image, and I'll take it full screen so you can see what's going on. I've also put, this is a technical advancement from the GOES series of satellites. We can put on the sea surface temperature data as well. This is very critical because, as you know, we monitor sea surface temperatures throughout the Gulf and in the Caribbean, because these warm sea surface temperatures are what fuels tropical cyclones to form. And that's what we need to monitor. It's not hurricane season yet, June 1st, but it doesn't mean we can't have one before June 1st. But typically they start around that time. And that's why everybody dealing with hurricane research and the National Weather Service, the National Hurricane Center, the Aircraft Operations Center that's in Lakeland, Florida, they're the ones that house the hurricane hunters that fly into the Caribbean and into the Gulf and into the Atlantic to monitor these storms. Now, I want to move over to the west a little bit here. This is an interesting perspective. There's a low pressure system well off the California coast, but it's shooting off some showers into Southern California. And you can see south of San Francisco here, there's some clouds associated with this low pressure. But I'm going to switch satellites. How many people can do that? We're switching from GOES east to GOES west. And there we have it. Look at this hemispheric view from the GOES West satellite. And we're having a flash there because there was some sort of data glitch or data hit there. But I do want to point out, remember we talked yesterday about that strong low pressure in the Gulf of Alaska that's going to be impacting there with strong winds and heavy waves. There is an atmospheric river right here. Look at that. It's out over the Pacific Ocean, and it needs to be monitored further. And some of the latest information just handed to me today, and I did confirm it, is that the Environmental Modeling Center at the National Centers for Environmental Prediction requested a flight of the G4, the Gulfstream 4 NOAA aircraft, to fly out here and take measurements around this atmospheric river to initialize the models better. We need to have good data to initialize models to make sure that we understand what's headed our way. And because of a lack of resources and a lack of people now, because of these layoffs that have happened within NOAA, that aircraft flight has been canceled until further notice. So now we're not going to be able to gather atmospheric data around this atmospheric river to get better model forecasts. We're already seeing impacts from these reductions in staff. And I just want to show you as well other things that we watch for NOAA and from NOAA data. Here's an example of the percent of normal of total atmospheric precipitable water. This is called the blended total precipitable water product. You can see that system here that's moving up towards the Gulf of Alaska. That's the one I just showed you in satellite. It had above anomalously high moisture associated with it. And we can watch all of these atmospheric rivers come together and head towards the United States. Why are atmospheric rivers so important for us to know about? I mean, good grief, they're all the way out here in the ocean. Why do we care about that? Well, we care about that. I'll go back to the satellite data as well. We care about that because clouds move, precipitation moves. These atmospheric rivers move towards the coast, and once they make contact with the western United States, precipitation falls. And if it's an atmospheric river, strong precipitation, heavy rain, flooding rains could develop. We also need to know about these atmospheric rivers, and I'll go back here to the blended total precipitable water product. We care about these atmospheric rivers because reservoir operators need to know how much rain is going to fall in their basin so they can release water out of a dam or not release water and build up the level of a reservoir. All this is important because we have many reservoirs along the western United States, and they are thirsty for water. When you run out of water in the summer and you can't water your grass or you can't drink, you have to get water trucked in. It's because Mother Nature has not provided the right amount of precipitation, or the reservoirs have not been managed correctly. If water is released early from a reservoir when you don't need it and that reservoir drains, then those people are out of luck if you don't get any more rain and that reservoir can fill back up. So this is very important information for us to have. And I want to go over to the model forecast data as well. But before I do that, I do want to show you the National Weather Service real-time data and what that looks like around the country. Take a look at this. You see these temperatures around the country right now? 20 degrees up towards Buffalo, 55 degrees near Cleveland, 70s in Oklahoma. All of this is because we have surface observing systems, and those surface observing systems are networked in to feed the National Weather Service with all of this data. Look, we can go up into Canada. We have international agreements to share data between our countries. That's why we can give you these temperatures. And even up towards Alaska, we have all the temperature data coming in. And it's cold up there, not too cold. Look at this, 45 degrees out towards the Aleutian Islands. Anchorage, 36 degrees above freezing. And temperatures are above freezing. And they have some watches and advisories there because of heavy rain headed their way. Now, here's what I want to do. I want to move over internationally here to see if we can get international temperature data. Whoops. Sorry about that. I'll zoom back in again. So here we are, and we have temperature data that is being reported from international partners. Here is Russia. Here is Mongolia, Kazakhstan, over towards Poland and Sweden. The World Meteorological Organization is an organization that helps coordinate the reporting of international data. Look at all this down towards Australia, New Zealand, India, Africa. All of this is possible because of international agreements. And if we have a reduction in force from the folks at NOAA and the National Weather Service, we may have an impact with the amount of data that's being reported. We don't want it to look like this, but one day it could look like this if the data stops flowing. We need people to keep that data flowing. So now I want to talk about the model data because we do have some impacts headed our way. Right now we have a pretty strong low pressure system. We call it an Alberta clipper that's coming down out of Canada, creating this fine line of strong or heavy snow in Canada across the extreme northern Great Lakes, getting some rain right now, but that cold air is going to come in behind this low as it scoots across into western New England and provides some light snow there. Meanwhile, a strong high pressure is going to build up and provide some cold temperatures. We're going to have this front come through Saturday night. We have that strong wind and those fire weather watches in effect along the mid-Atlantic and the East Coast. When this front passes through, temperatures are going to go down. Only high temperatures to reach the mid to upper 30s in the mid-Atlantic, even after experiencing temperatures in the mid-60s just yesterday. So if we continue on with this forecast here on into Sunday, into Monday, I want you to watch what's going on with a low pressure system that's going to be forming on Tuesday in Kansas, coming out of Colorado. And look at this. This is a strong area of showers and thunderstorms that may be developing during the day on Tuesday into Wednesday. We're going to watch this area. The Storm Prediction Center says there's a chance for some severe weather to develop. Pay attention to your local broadcast meteorologist as they'll dive into more details for you in these areas. But you can just see how strong this low gets. And these strong thunderstorms propagate eastward into Alabama and perhaps into Georgia and Tennessee. So I'm not calling for any big severe weather outbreak next week, but the models do indicate something could be going on. So we do want to keep our antennas up, right? Make sure if you have any plans on Tuesday or Wednesday in the southeast, You check with your local broadcast meteorologist. Don't look at a forecast today and then say, oh, I'm going to use that forecast for next Tuesday or Wednesday. The forecast changes every day because we get updated weather and updated information. And so this low is going to get pretty strong and move now, looks like, to the north of Chicago. So it doesn't look like a big snowstorm is in store for Chicago, but a lot of wind is during next week. So keep posted on that and what's going on. So remember, I told you about that atmospheric river out west. I want to show you what it looks like from the standpoint of the atmospheric river forecast. Remember, this is what I show you for specific pinpoint areas from southern Alaska all the way down through western Canada, British Columbia, into the western United States. Right now, there is no atmospheric river forecast over the next 7 days. There's a signal of something, but doesn't really look like it's going to be anything major. This is why we need aircraft to fly out over the Pacific. The National Centers for Environmental Prediction, the Environmental Modeling Center, is requesting that because they need more data. Nope. The resources aren't available from the Aircraft Operations Center. They've had major layoffs. They can't operate the plane. And I got to tell you, if this continues into hurricane season after June 1st, and we miss flying in and around hurricanes that are developing, it's going to have a major impact on the model's ability to forecast the intensity of the storm and also the track of the storm. And the National Hurricane Center did a terrific job last year with their forecast intensities and tracks, keeping all of us safe and warned well ahead of time when major hurricanes were coming to the United States and to our partners in the Caribbean. So we're keeping an eye on all of that. We're going to be working extra hard coming up this hurricane season to provide you with information that you can use. But right now, it looks like there's not a major atmospheric river coming. But if we had aircraft data, maybe we would see a major atmospheric river coming. So that's all critical stuff, and it's very important. So that's all I want to talk about today for this update. I did ask Dr. Ellen Prager to come in because we have major impacts to the National Weather Service in their reduction in force layoffs, also to different line offices within NOAA, the Oceanic and Atmospheric Research Division. So many branches of NOAA are impacted, and we are going to see a reduction in data that can be collected. And I've also asked Dr. Ellen Prager to come in. She's a marine scientist, former aquanaut, to talk about what we're seeing from the marine side. So here was our conversation earlier today. Well, we brought Ellen Prager back. Ellen, thanks a lot for being here on this difficult day today and yesterday for NOAA as they endure some of these terrible cuts, people being fired, laid off, reduction in force, whatever you call it. I just talked about some of the weather impacts. Now, what are you hearing? I mean, you're a marine scientist, you're a former aquanaut, you know a lot of people throughout the marine area. So what are you hearing and what are your thoughts based on these cuts that we're hearing?
Well, Dave, it's a hard day for everybody. And honestly, it's pretty scary. I have relied on NOAA for data everyday life, but also certainly when I'm out at sea, when I'm on the coast, when I'm doing work, or even just living. The data is critically important to being safe, and if you're anywhere near the ocean. And there's the weather side, and I'm sure you're going to cover that, so I don't even need to cover it, but that's huge. But there's also what we call the wet side of NOAA, and that's having to do with oceans. And I know that they've in fact fired people who keep ocean observations going, for instance, in the Chesapeake Bay, which is right near where I live. And those observations are critical to understanding what's happening with regard to fisheries. Think about the crab fishery in the Chesapeake. We need to understand what's going on in the ocean if we want to keep a good crab fishery. So it's the economy, it's seafood, maritime commerce. Think about all those ships that are out there. That's how we transport and deliver goods across the world. And for the U.S., huge part of our economy is located in ports. The data that keeps those ships safe and operating comes from NOAA. There's fisheries, seafood, sustainable seafood. There's new economies having to do with aquaculture, wave energy. These are all things that NOAA helps to go. It's not the private industry. It's all based on data coming from NOAA. There's private industry out there working in these fields, but the data they are using and a lot of the technology they use comes from NOAA. So
You've talked as well, Ellen, about the those exclusive economic zones. What are they, and how are they impacted? I know you've helped know on some of the exploration activities.
right. Thank you, Dave. So our exclusive economic zone is the zone around the US where we have exclusive rights to what's in that area. But it turns out we've only mapped about 48% of that. And not only map, but even looking even closer, like what's actually there is less than 48%. So we don't really know what minerals, what habitats, what biodiversity, what animals could be there. One of the things that we use in the deep sea is we've discovered pharmaceuticals associated with marine life that can be used to fight cancer and fight pain. These are really important. And if we don't have the ships and the personnel and the technology to go out and explore and do research in the areas, we're really going to lose out for the economy, for public health, for national security. These are all huge issues of not having a fully staffed NOAA. And on the weather side, it's been mapped, but also on the ocean side, it hasn't been fully staffed. So think about coral reefs, think about rip currents, tourism and recreation of the coastal zone. All of that depends on forecasts and information coming from NOAA, based on data from NOAA.
So if the data itself were, I guess what we have to worry about is that future data is not collected because we have fewer people. I mean, what happens to the data? It has to be saved somewhere, has to be served, has to be analyzed, all that kind of stuff. I mean, we don't quite know the extent of these layoffs. I'm hearing it could be amount to about 10% of NOAA's workforce, which is devastating. But it doesn't mean that everything is going to stop tomorrow and the data flow is going to stop. But what does that do to you on the marine side as far as confidence moving forward with data that may or may not be collected?
Well, I'll give you an example. One of the hardest things about working in the ocean is keeping equipment running. And it's expensive and it takes personnel and ships. Think about all the buoys that are out there for ocean observations, the DART buoys for tsunamis. I mean, the equipment, the stations that are out in the ocean take people and effort to keep them working. And if those buoys and things go down and we don't have the personnel or the funding to go out and fix them, we're really going to be at a loss. So that is very worrisome. And of course, forecasts. Just like you, I'm really worried about the accuracy and the timeliness of hurricane forecasts, their track and intensity. Those are critically important to responding. And what about oil spills? What about harmful algal blooms? And again, fisheries. These are all things that we need data to understand what's happening and to respond.
Do you think that there could be an impact over the long term to observing and gathering climate records? I mean, is that something that could be impacted over the longer term?
Absolutely. If we don't have that data, how do you compare what we're seeing today with what's happened in the past if you're not collecting it? There's no way to know what's really going on. There are really big questions about ocean circulation. Is the deep ocean circulation and the Gulf Stream and Loop, are they slowing down what's called the AMOC? Without data and research, we're not going to know that. What about ocean heat content? We're not going to know that. What about patterns of migrations from whales to fisheries, the menhaden, things that we depend on, and the food web in the ocean that the whole ecosystem and the whole essentially ocean depends on. We need that data to understand what's happening and how it's going to affect not just the ocean food web, but society as well, people, coastal erosion, again, rip currents. These are all things we need data. And I don't know about you, but I've seen some real misinformation out there about how apps and forecasts and things work, think, oh, we have weather apps, we have ocean information. We don't need NOAA. All that's dependent on data that comes from NOAA. So I don't know, have you heard that same sort of thing?
Oh, of course. Yeah. People saying that, why do we even need the weather service? When I have my app or I can get this data, but certainly those apps require data input from NOAA, from the National Weather Service, model output, observations, radar data. There are a lot of radar apps out there, but if they didn't have National Weather Service radars collecting that data, they wouldn't have a business. And so NOAA is really the foundation, if you will, of providing that data and opening up a multi-billion-dollar weather industry and supporting that industry through all of their partners. So we're really going to have to keep monitoring this. As you know, we provide support to the All Hazards Consortium, to many sectors, the food, fuel, utility, medical supply, communication sectors. And a lot of those warnings and bulletins and things like that come from the forecast offices across the country with NOAA. And it looks like, we're approaching the spring season. We've got severe weather that's going to be on tap, perhaps even as early as next week. And like you said, we have the upcoming hurricane season that could really throw a wrench into everybody's lives. We just really hope that all of the warnings can be issued, that we can still track and monitor these storms. But one big thing is that the Weather Service works on shift work. And if they don't have enough people to operate shift work, then we're going to see a gap in coverage. We're going to see perhaps a gap in warnings that are issued. And those warnings are what makes everybody's phone go off, everybody's NOAA weather radio go off. And gets that crawl going across the bottom of their local television station.
Right.
So it's really serious stuff.
Yep. And it also, just so people understand, it's not just you think about just the forecasters, it's also all the people behind the scenes who keep things running, right? Think about the Hurricane Hunter planes. It's the mechanics. It's, all the people who supply things. It's a huge network of people or team that makes all this happen. And when you start losing people and you can't keep things running, bad things start happening.
Yeah, I think of it, if we sort of get away from the weather topic for a second, I kind of think of NOAA as providing the environmental security that we need to keep everybody safe across the nation. I mean, think of NOAA as our environmental security blanket, that iron dome of safety net, right? That protects lives and property. And without that iron dome, all bets are off on public safety. So
Right.
the National Weather Service was already short-staffed and working hard to attract the best and the brightest young professionals. So we really are going to keep an eye on this, and we'll keep everybody posted on the channel here. And we really do appreciate all of you watching and asking questions. And certainly, Ellen, I did want to touch on, it's something that the folks at NOAA are, we don't want them to give up. We want them to keep working hard. They have a whole private sector group out there, the Weather Enterprise, that's what's called, that are behind them and really doing everything that we can to make sure that everyone understands the significance of NOAA and the National Weather Service and the National Ocean Service and all the other line offices within NOAA.
Yep. Thank you, Dave. Thanks for what you're doing. And thanks for people out there speaking up, calling their representatives and supporting the people at NOAA. They need it. We all need it.
Ellen, thanks so much for joining us. We'll probably be back again next week talking to you about more potential impacts of these workforce reductions.
Thank you, Dave.
So there you have it, from the wet side of NOAA to the dry side, which includes the National Weather Service. We've touched just the surface of the impacts that are happening across NOAA. But I did want to point out, we produced in 2018 and 2019 a couple of videos that focused on the JPSS satellite system and also the GOES-R satellite series. And I took some of those pieces and mashed them up together just to show you some of the impacts that NOAA makes through their technology. So that's the last 5 minutes of this video, and I hope you enjoy it. But most importantly, I hope you can appreciate the work that the men and women of NOAA do 24/7, 365. We all work together to try to keep you safe. Here's the video.
When people wake up in the morning, the first thing they think of usually is, well, what's the weather outside?
The Category 2 monster storm is intensifying. It's expected to make landfall less than 24 hours from now.
See that center of circulation well defined on a satellite image? That means it's strengthening.
The high resolution imagery, it really is a game changer.
This is the roof we're starting to rip off. We saw street signs flying.
This is the kind of devastation and the kind of damage that we are seeing all over.
When you hoist someone off a vessel out of the Bering Sea that was pitching around, Coast Guard's able to get out there and safely do it because of the weather forecasting.
Our whole team and in the National Weather Service, it's being able to get out there, use the technology, and save lives.
I always watch the launches, and you're rooting them on.
And liftoff of NOAA's Joint Polar Satellite System 1.
Seeing the liftoff, it was like, okay, victory's close.
Oh, excitement. When you see a new piece of instrumentation, you know it's going to make a positive impact.
It's like you were in a dark room, and now you're turning on a light.
Being here in Alaska, aviation is incredibly important. Without aviation, we wouldn't have the economy, we wouldn't have access to medical care or any other kind of resources. That is the only year-round reliable mode of transportation here in Alaska. If you don't have an accurate picture of what the weather's doing, you can get yourself in trouble pretty quick. I'm Adam White, Government and Legislative Affairs for the Alaska Airmen's Association.
If we have little pockets of shore-fast ice developing here, and little open water, that can actually push the water up onto the coastlines into the communities and villages, which is critical information for them to know for safety. I'm Melissa Kreller. I'm the meteorologist in charge at the National Weather Service Forecast Office in Fairbanks.
We're now able to give warnings to people in time to save their lives from a fire, from a volcano exploding and the ash impacting an aircraft, to flash floods like what happened in Ellicott City.
Howard County 911. Yes, there are 2 people stuck on Tiber River.
I don't want to drown in here, Gary. I don't want to drown in my store.
Howard County 911. I have a lady stuck in a building over here, and the water's getting higher and higher on her.
That's what I tied myself to. Leather and then a chain linked through it, and I was standing on this, and water was just coming over.
Eventually, those big trees floating down or like a battering ram busted that block wall out, and it just disintegrated.
So I just held on to the railings, and I have Joni sort of clinging to me.
He took that phone and he broke the glass that was in the top of the door.
Is anyone gonna come get me? Does anybody know I'm here?
And he said, Joni, I want you to hold as tight as you can. Do not let go. And he went through that window in the door, and then he pulled me through.
Water is continuing to rise, and it was approximately up to our chin.
The water, already me standing 9 feet on top of my desk, from the bottom to that, up to my neck, and then having that suction when this, the window finally breaks.
I didn't just save her life, she saved my life as well.
To make severe weather forecasts that are really accurate and timely, you need a ton of information from a bunch of different sources.
And it was amazing. Harvey underwent rapid intensification, and we saw that in the hours before it made landfall in southeast Texas.
Better resolution, temporal, spatial, really being able to see the storm like we hadn't seen it before.
When forecasting an extreme event, seconds, not minutes, not hours, literally seconds, can mean the difference between life or death.
I definitely think that lives were saved because of GOES 16.
Harvey blew up so quickly
I think without GOES 16, I think Harvey could have been much worse.
Shortly after GOES 16 had been launched, there was a outbreak of wildfires in Oklahoma, and that data is initial and as preliminary as it was still being used by decision makers. These fires were rapidly evolving, the winds were changing directions, and GOES 16 proved invaluable for being able to know exactly where the fires were going and where to position and pre-position firefighting.
When you have something like a Harvey or an Irma or a Maria, imagine what it would have been if we couldn't have given those warnings.
Our students are using cutting-edge data as they learn about meteorology and our atmosphere. They're not just learning about it in textbooks. They have their hands on the data, using it in their weather briefings or using it in their master's theses or doctoral dissertations. So we are in an era where we have immediate access to the data, and we can use it both in an instructional capacity as well as a research capacity.